Some of you guessed after looking at it from last episode that we are going to need a third tune for this thing to perform well. That was kind of always the plan, but now we're kind of at a critical point where it needs to be incorporated into the design now that the top has been taken care of. That was always the plan. But all the new age things will not retrofit to this boat without modification. It's just a really old design, and I explained this a little bit later, but it just has to go. I cannot push my final vision of how the back should become without it, and I certainly can't mount that third tune. I also wanted an open lounge style back with steps to go down to the water, but the Coast Guard requires that you have some sort of gate or fence or chain, so I might as well make a multifunction tow bar that holds things and does other stuff. Also, the live well is a sore issue. I want one in this boat very badly. So the things that I'm willing to do to get it in there, well, they're not undoable. Might be a little excessive, but I'm going to show you how to do it in this video. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting old, and I really only have so many of these major boat builds like this in me, and so one and done, we're going to go all out. Hey guys, a big huge part of the strategy for this boat is all the custom dry hatches. Even I don't get special privileges on when these go out, so I made sure I ordered these all during the winter during our slow time. Because in the spring throughout the summer, it gets pretty busy, and people start buying them faster than we can make. So come on, right now, check them out. Pick your own custom size. We have tons of custom sizes you can choose from, including rear-facing hatches. Choose what side you want the hinge on so the hatch can open up however you want. You can choose them to get gap for carpet so they will fit when you wrap carpet around them, or you can get them gap for EVA foam, vinyl, paint, non-skid, whatever you want. They're completely customizable. Check them out now at tbnation.net.
Oh, that's how you would access the inside here. Okay, there's the fuel tank.
I was totally going to keep it because it's a working motor. I'm a big fan of Johnson and Evinrude, like the old ones. The new ones I never got to actually try, but I heard they were pretty cool too before BRP pulled out. This is an old style where this sits in deeper. The motor mount sits in deeper than the pontoons to hide under a cowl, so the two-stroke smoke doesn't flood the inner side and gross everybody out. And so that whole back thing is gone. This whole back here is going to be open. This is the beginning of a tow ring, tow bar, whatever you want to call it, that hangs up slash platform for a cooler. So the cooler can just not be sitting out here. And then this thing is gone. The poly tube that I'm going to get is going to end up need to be either directly flush with this or even 6 inches back so it can get up and go more. But we're gonna have to make a tube coming from here. We're gonna have to just repurpose some sort of channel and make it go that way. Yeah, there's no way around it. I cut holes in that siding in an attempt to try and keep it. So I just exposed the channel. There's just 3/16 inch seat channel all the way down the frame. That the pontoons are binding against the seat channel together. That's what makes this entire boat rigid. I don't see a real way to get around this without welding. I guess you could use like stainless steel through bolts like every so often, and you could maybe get a okay result, but this is a better way. But that's a square tube inside C-channel, so it's not the exact same thickness. So after we weld this into the C-channel on each side, we'll have to go in and close it with something else. I also realized that this side flashing, it's going to be pretty more or less useless. It's pretty low grade. It only served the purpose just as a cosmetic value there for the old motor design. It's just going to be in the way and hinder progress, and I don't want to have to retrofit around something that's crappy to begin with. So we just took it all off, and we're all just at a clean slate. To make up for that 3/16 inch gap, I went ahead and used angle and went and wrapped it around the bottom. So just filled that void and made it look like it was one solid piece. But in the inside, I kind of needed to do the same so the top would level out, so I could put a new piece that would level out with the plywood itself. So we just kind of had to enclose that tube with angle to make an outer tube, so to speak. There's a lot of extra welding and cosmetic work. Now we have to replace the edge trimming with something that's going to actually match the rest of the boat's design. So we went ahead and kind of trimmed that wood and represerved it with epoxy, and then started in our initial design, which just consists of angle every so often, moving around, which will try to weld without causing a fire on the wood. It's actually took an obscene amount of time to do. I don't know where it all went, but this is kind of it toward the end where we're kind of just polishing it up with an orbital sander to try and put the finished design. That's an 1/8 inch sheet metal plate that I had lying around. I had to obviously extend the plate a little bit more to make up for that gap, but that's ultimately where the live well was going to go, which is good because I had no place for it to go. Once we made the towers, it kind of needed to repurpose it somewhere else.
All right, guys, this was a huge pain. This whole part took me like a very long time to do. I was actually kind of bitter about it. I reclaimed the 2 feet that was missing, and that gave me a lot of serious momentum how to do the back. I'd realized that I wasn't going to have much storage. Now, you got to remember, to provide all the walkways, we're having giant voids in the storage bin where we would normally have tons of it. So we're actually losing out on a lot of storage. We had to make up for it somehow. The cool thing is, the gas tank will be in the pontoon, so that just leaves us a lot of room here for batteries and compartments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can have like a little table here. I can like enmesh little drink koozies or something, and you can kind of eat a sandwich or something here. I don't know. You could eat underneath a nice shade like these in there. But we'll be using these. These are the ones we sell on the website. They're stainless steel. They're pretty nice. They're kind of our house ones. We use these because they're stainless steel, and because they're stainless steel versus say an aluminum one like this one. If you can tell how much thicker that is versus that, it's like twice, maybe almost 3 times as thick. And that's because it has to be, which is not a terrible thing unless you're trying to lay it flush to the hatch. So like these specifically we like better because you don't have to make them flush. You can kind of just put them on the frame like so, bolt them down and turf right over them. And if you're using camo cut groove, you can barely notice it actually just looks like it's formed right in. You don't even feel it with your feet, nothing. So these are just the easiest to install. I did end up having though, because this one is aluminum, had some weird coating on it that doesn't like to be welded, so that kind of was a pain to get off, but we ended up welding that. We'll get little pieces of 1/8 inch and stick them in here, kind of weld them in just so that they're just little filler pieces for our 090 piece that we're sticking over here, and then we'll cut out a hole and we'll just have a flush mount spot here for a seat. Because this section here, really, I'm only going to need just not the biggest seat. I mean, a captain's chair is kind of stupid. It would have just taken up a whole bunch of space. So a pedestal, and then I could put whatever comfortable seat I want, or I likely would just running a butt seat because I'll likely just be standing up in this, and I'll have a little grab bar that I can hold on to, and I'll just be standing up, holding onto the grab bar and holding onto the wheel and driving around. These are the doors. The doors were an extraordinary pain to make. Anyways, these are Nate's infamous dry hatches. Y'all know what they are. These were the ones that were raw aluminum that I painted. Actual hole cutout. Then it sticks out 1.5 inches around the entire thing. So, fits right in. There's that one. We have our own custom TBN latches now, and they're pretty sweet. So now we can finally finish framing the back of the boat. I have an idea of where the motor mount for the engine is going to hang out, so I can go ahead and just kind of do everything else, but it all kind of has to be done. While that third tune is not on there, it makes it tremendously easier to get underneath and on top of the boat to work and attach all that framing to the deck and strengthen it all out. We also did put a canopy up there that's in the previous episode. You guys check out the playlist, you can see all this firsthand. This is kind of a little farther on in the design. The wind is killing my ability to weld, so a lot of it's just loosely put in and framed with rivets, and then later on we'll kind of tie it all together and polish it up. The wind didn't stop me from finishing the live well though. That was one thing I was able to kind of do. Now I've seen in other pontoon designs like in Bass Pro where they had a bilge pump that just pushed water up from the bottom of the tune in a little bracket like this all the way to wherever the live well in that thing was. But I wanted a little something extra, even though that would have been fine. I had some of these pumps from our TB Nation live well kits kind of lying around. I'm a pretty big fan of how they work, and you can also put a screen on the bottom to stop any kind of junk from clogging up that or clogging up any of the hoses, and that's pretty important to me. The screens, they make the longevity of your live well systems last tremendously. That thing kind of has a screen on the bottom, but it's whatever. Either thing will work, but once we just had a working version, which is
how I wanted it. They had these brackets back there where our ladder used to be. We're no longer going to use the stock ladder. It couldn't even convert to our new design if it wanted to. So we're just going to go ahead and use it to kind of bracket and hold the hose in place. I drilled a hole on the side framing of the pontoon, but then I forgot that you could just put the hose right over the tune between the framing. So then I just rerouted it, and I drilled a hole through that metal piece that we installed earlier and used that to route the hose up. Now this will be the initial fill nozzle. These are the nozzles that we have in our TBN live well kits. I like them because they're super low profile. They fit tight right to the box, and the flow right nozzles don't do that. This was really important because I needed those hoses as close to the tube so I could insulate them all in. Yeah, I foamed right over those. The nozzles, they don't fail over time. I've never had a nozzle break on me and fail. If it does, then we'll rip the foam out. But insulating the live well is extremely important if you can do it. A lot of times it can't be done. And right now I couldn't do it until I was done welding all the major supports around it so I didn't melt the foam. But how you attach foam to aluminum in a pretty good way is just like gap filler. That's tank bond, which is pretty much expandable gap foam. It's just ultra low expanding, so it's supposed to be more like glue. It's the nastiest stuff ever. It gets on your finger, it won't come off. But you can just use regular gap filler and it might even work better. Anyways, this is the recirc pump. Now it's on a version 3 live well valve, but only the drain and recirc will work. The auto won't work, which is why we have that pump down there at the bottom of the pontoon, because there's no way you can suck water from the pump up here and the hose all the way down there. It'll never work. So we had to have a pump all the way down at the pontoon to pull that off. We have the drain port coming right off of it, going down, and it'll just go right into the water. It's pretty easy when you think about it when you're making a live well for a pontoon, because you don't have to worry about a whole lot of things you have to worry on a regular boat, like having the pump below the water line, all this other stuff. You just got to have it in certain places, and it's pretty easy. Now all we have to do is panel the back and then panel the top of the tow bar / polling platform, whatever you want to call this nonsense. But we also need to integrate a way to cleanly run wires through, because we're going to have LEDs flashing everywhere, especially some of that edge guard right there that we installed from Nate's shop. I actually made a gap between the edge guard and the store so we could stick LEDs in there. We also have to finish the console, and we'll be running all the wiring topside. None of wiring will be ran underneath the pontoon. I don't want anything to do with that. It's a bunch of nonsense. So we'll have to do is a few extra steps, but ultimately this boat will be very easy to troubleshoot and add things on as needed. Which is good because this is a fairly big project and a lot of it will have to be done in steps after the first initial parts have been tested. Anyways, thank you guys for checking this out. Stay tuned for the rest of the series.